Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Joy of Painting with me, Mr. Martin. Today you've joined me on a slightly cloudier day, but that doesn't mean we can't enjoy the beauty of Earth's nature right here on the page. So last week I received a message that made me realise something. Most of you at home don't have lots of art equipment, and a lot of the things that I've been using you just don't have available to you. And that's absolutely fair enough. So this week, what I want to do is try to limit what I can use to some more basic paints and paintbrushes and even paper, so that you hopefully will have more of a chance at home to replicate what I'm doing. Now, I was hoping that I did have some just simple paints lying around. Unfortunately, the only thing I have other than watercolours is my gouache paints. So that's what I'm going to be using today, but essentially they're just like acrylic or any just poster paints that you can get anywhere else. So they should be absolutely fine. I will keep my eye out to get some even simpler forms of paint so that it makes it easier for you to join in at home. Unfortunately this week I wasn't able to get my hands on that. So in terms of what colours we've got today, we've got some crimson red, some burnt sienna, some yellow ochre, some lemon yellow, pale green, viridian, cerulean blue, a little bit of Prussian blue, and I think that'll do for us. We might not use all of those, we may only use a selection of those, but I think that's exactly what we're going to need to get something nice on here today. In terms of paintbrushes, today I'm only using a thin paintbrush and a slightly thicker paintbrush. I'm not using my 1.5 inch brush because I know that a lot of people at home don't have one of those, so I'm only using these two simple brushes today. Now in terms of what we're going to make, I'm hoping to make a sort of a field with lots of nice trees in there as well. Who knows, we may even add a lake. Often I think with painting it's best to just see where the day takes you, see where it goes, and often you can just add in whatever you like as you're going. Let's go for a nice cerulean blue. Just get some nice paint on there. And I'm just going to start in the middle. Just making a nice little line across there. Okay, and there's our skyline put in. So now we're ready to add some more colours and add some ground to this. So just give your paintbrush a wash. It's also useful to have some tissue as well, just to wipe off any excess paint that you've got on there. I think we're going to start with the viridian to lay a little groundwork down here, and we can always add some pale green for highlights later. So we're going to grab our viridian, or any sort of darker green will work for this. Again, it doesn't have to be exactly what I am using. So we're going to join these two here in the middle, so we have our lines coming together. And it doesn't have to be the straightest line, because the thing with land, the thing with earth, is that it's never quite straight. You don't just have a full, perfect sort of sphere for the earth. There's lots of bumps all over it. So it doesn't have to be a straight line, you can just have a little bit coming up, and that's just a little hill. It's all good. And again, like the top, we're just going to have a natural finish at the bottom. We're not going to try and cover every bit of it. We're just going to have that natural finish. And there we are. We've got our sky and we've got our ground. A very simple, basic overlay for what's to come. So wash off our brush again. You know what I want to do with this? I want to put a nice sunset in there. I think it would be a really good chance to use some of our lemon yellow and our yellow ochre. I think that would be a really nice chance to mix some of those together, and then we can have a nice sunset right in the middle here. So I'm going to take some of that lemon yellow and I'm going to put it in my middle section here, and I'm going to then add some yellow ochre, just a little bit. I'm going to mix that in together. Now it's important with paints to remember that dark always powers over light. It's not like superheroes and villains where the heroes always win, the light side wins. In this case, the dark side wins. So you want to use much less dark paint than light paint. So now that I've got a nice little yellow here, we can start to add our sunset. Now for this, we do kind of need a pretty straight line along the bottom. So we're going to be careful with that. And then we just have a nice oval shape. So we're going to add our straight line along here. And then we're just going to take a bit more of that, and we're going to make our sunset. Now I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap over to my smaller brush, and I think it's time to put in some trees. Now this burnt sienna is looking a little bit red for me, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a tiny bit of black, and I'm going to make it a bit darker. So we're going to get our brush in there, and then we're going to start to do what we always do when we do our trees. We're going to start with the trunk, just going all the way down. So I'm going to have some over here. And let's see, we want to start doing them at the back first and then coming forward. As I've said before, it's always best to do things in the background before the foreground. So let's have a nice little tree over here, and then a really big tree over here. Now I don't want to make it too complicated, so I'm not going to add trees where the sun is, because I want this to be simple enough for people to be able to follow at home. Okay, now for these trees, the actual leaves, what we don't want is for them to be the exact same colour as our grass, because it will make the image look a little bit too flat. We want to add some variation of colour in there. So we could go with our pale green, or we could go with a darker green again. Now what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pale green and I'm going to add a little bit of darkness to it so that it becomes a slightly different kind of green. It might be a similar shade of darkness as our Viridian, but it's not going to be the same actual colour. That is looking perfect. We've got ourselves a nice little forest green going on here, almost a moss green. And I think that's really what we want here. So we're going to take some, and remember, start with the trees at the back, and we're going to just do our little zigzags down to paint those leaves on there. So I'm going to start with my back trees, and I'm just going to do my little zigzags, paint those trees. Remember, getting wider at the bottom. Okay, there's one down. Start with this one there. And it's okay if you go over the trees that are behind, because that's why we're starting with the ones at the back. And now while we have some of this, we can also add just a very thin layer to our little tufts of grass at the bottom, just to add a little bit more depth to that as well. So you want to just go over that just a little bit while we've got that. It just adds a little bit of a different shade to it. What I think a good idea to do next would just be to add some bushes in there, like we've done on a previous one. Just going to add some nice little shrubbery and maybe some flowering on there as well. And I think for this one we're going to go with our pale green, with just a tiny bit of black in there, just to make it slightly darker. So you want to mix that all together. Just the tiniest bit of black in there, just to take the edge off of it. And what we're going to do with this, we're not going to swipe or wipe on there in any way, we're just going to dab it. We're just going to dab on there to create a little bush-like shape. And you can put them anywhere you like. I'm going to have mine around here. And I think I'll have a few more down here. I'm just dabbing that in there. We're swapping our brush again, and we're going for our little brush. And as we've done before, we're going to add some nice flowering plants onto these bushes. Now we've got a choice. We could use our yellows, or we could go for a red. Now we haven't used that crimson red yet, so I think I'm going to go for that. So I'm going to add some of that crimson red on here, and I'm just going to do some little dots on these bushes. They could be sort of berry bushes, couldn't they? We don't want too much, just little dabs. I think I'm just going to add a slightly darker green to the bottom of these bushes, just to give them a little bit of depth on there. And then why don't we just add a nice little path coming through here. I think that'll finish it up nicely. And then with a light layer, we're just going to add some darkness to the bottom here. Now, all you need to do is just go along what you've already done, just with a bottom layer there. And you can see it's very subtle, but we're just adding an extra layer to this. So I'm going to take my slightly bigger brush just to finish off this path going down the middle. I think I'm going to use a mixture again of my burnt sienna and a little bit of black. And I'm going to mix that together. Now you want to be careful at the top here that you don't go over your sun, because we don't have paths into the sun, because that would be quite dangerous. Instead, we want to just get underneath the sun here, as close as we can to the horizon without actually going into it. And at the top here, we want to start off smaller, because as we know already, things that are far away look smaller. So we want to start off quite small. And then you can start to make it a little bit windy if you want. And as you get closer, start to make it a bit bigger until you're right at the front here and you're really, really big. Now, if we wanted to go more detailed, we could add some lighting from the sun onto these trees. Now, I'm not going to do that today because I don't want to go too complicated, and I think we've spent quite a lot of time on this already. But if you feel like doing that at home and you have the confidence to do that, then I think it would be a lovely idea, and I'd love to see that too. So that's going to be it from us today. Thank you for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed. I love making these for everybody who watches, so thank you for watching. And I'll see you next time.